You are in a room, and the sound is constant. Not loud, not dramatic, just the low, steady drumming of rain against the window. You can feel the weight of the air, the slight chill that seeps through the glass. Your world has shrunk to these four walls, and the gray outside feels endless. You check your phone for the forecast, hoping for a break into solid blocks of blue and gray. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. A part of you starts to feel it, a low hum of restlessness, a craving for sunlight on your skin that feels almost physical. This isn't just boredom. It's a biological signal, quiet but persistent, telling you this isn't right. Now imagine that signal screaming. Not for 2 days, but for 2 weeks, 2 months. An entire season where the sky never truly clears, where everything you touch is damp. It's animal hides stretched over wood, or a shallow cave mouth. The cold isn't a thermostat setting. It's in your bones, leaching your warmth and will. This was the reality for countless generations of your ancestors. And if even one of them had failed to solve the endless, drowning rain, you would not be sitting here, listening to it fall. For 99.9% of human history, climate wasn't a news headline. It was the dictator of your existence. And while we often picture our ancestors on sun-baked savannas, the truth is, they followed the food, and the food went where the water was. They pushed into temperate rainforests, into monsoon-drenched coasts. Survival here wasn't about the dramatic hunt or the heroic fight. It was a slow, grinding war against dampness. A war where the enemy was the air itself, or pneumonia filling your lungs, or a simple cut festering into a deadly infection. The stakes weren't excitement. They were sheer, silent persistence. So how did they do it? Without Gore-Tex, without space heaters, without antimicrobial ointments? The answer isn't one clever trick. It was a layered defense, a system built into their behavior, their technology, and even their social bonds. Each layer a desperate answer to a single, soaking question. How do you stay truly dry? The first layer was, of course, shelter. But forget the classic image of a cozy cave. Caves were rare prizes, and often drafty, damp traps in their own right. The real innovation was what they built. We're not talking about simple lean-tos. Archaeological sites from places like the Pacific Northwest, where annual rainfall could exceed 3 meters, show evidence of sophisticated longhouse structures dating back thousands of years. These weren't thrown together in an afternoon. They were engineered. Think about the problem. You have endless rain. That means ground saturation. Building a floor directly on the earth is an invitation for moisture to wick up constantly. The solution? Raised floors. We have evidence of ancient habitation sites where post holes indicate structures built on elevated platforms, creating a crucial air gap between the living space and the sodden ground. This is insulation 101, discovered through pure necessity. Were then thatched or layered with bark, materials that, when angled correctly, shed water like a duck's back. But the genius was in the detailing. Overlapping layers, like shingles, to channel water away. Smoke holes designed not just to let smoke out, but to create a convection current that pulled damp air up and out, constantly drying the interior. But a shelter is only as good as what's inside it. And here is where we find the first truly counterintuitive twist. To survive the endless damp, your ancestors didn't just try to get away from the water. In one of their most vital technologies, to trap it. Because their greatest weapon against the rain wasn't a roof. It was fire, and not just any fire. A fire in a perpetually wet world is a constant struggle. Fuel is damp. Everything is damp. Starting it is a battle. Maintaining it is a war of attrition. So they became chemists of combustion. They learned which fungi grew on trees, like the tinder fungus, that could catch a spark even when wet, carrying the very heart of dryness with them in a portable clay pot or a bundle of slow-burning moss. A localized zone of absolute dryness. This is the visceral anchor of their existence. You are not sitting by a cozy fireplace for ambience. You are huddled around a contained, desperate sun that keeps the lethal damp at bay. That pulls the wet air up and out of the shelter. It dries the spare clothing, the foot wraps, the kindling for tomorrow's fight. The fire transformed their shelter from a mere windbreak into a biological life support system. The psychological effect is almost impossible to overstate. The circle of firelight wasn't just where the light was. It was where life was possible, reinforced that the fire, and by extension, the group around it, was what stood between you and the swallowing gray. But fire can only do so much. Your body itself is a source of moisture, breathing it out, sweating it out. And when you must leave the circle, you need a second skin. This is where material science met sheer ingenuity. Before woven textiles, the primary barrier was animal hide. But a simple, untreated hide in the rain becomes a heavy, cold, soggy mess that rots quickly. So they invented tanning. It was about fundamentally altering the collagen fibers to resist water and bacterial decay. They did it using the very environment around them, the tannins from tree bark, the brains of the animals they hunted, a process of stretching, smoking, and working that transformed a perishable skin into a durable, water-resistant shell. And they layered a grass cloak for an outer, shedding layer, a leather coat, and fur leggings. The grass cloak is a revelation. Water hits the outer blades and is channeled away, while the air trapped within the grass layer provides insulation. He was, in effect, wearing a small, mobile roof. Yet even the best clothing fails if what's underneath is soaked, which brings us to one of the most intimate and often overlooked battlegrounds, the feet. Trench foot isn't a modern military invention. It was a constant prehistoric threat. A foot infection could be a death sentence. So they solved for this, too. In many wet climate cultures, the solution wasn't to make a waterproof shoe. That was nearly impossible with ancient materials. It was to make a water-managing one. Soles made of wood or bark, with the foot wrapped in oiled leather or grasses. That could be changed out. The principle was to separate the foot from the standing water, and to use absorbent, replaceable materials next to the skin to wick moisture away. They understood the concept of a moisture barrier, not by theory, but by the painful consequences of neglecting it. All of this, the raised floor, the thatched roof, the eternal fire, the tanned and layered hides, the managed footwear, comprised a physical fortress against the rain. But there was a final, critical layer to their defense, one that operated on a longer timescale. It wasn't about staying dry in the moment. It was about not running out of resources in the season of want. Because endless rain doesn't just chill you. It changes the entire ecosystem. It can flood foraging grounds, make game scarce, and ruin stored food. This forced a different kind of intelligence, an ecological calendar in their minds. They learned to read the subtle precursors, the behavior of birds, the flowering of specific plants, the angle of the winds, to predict not just the rain's arrival, but its duration. This knowledge dictated a brutal calculus of surplus. The bounty of the dry season, or the summer run of fish, wasn't just for now. It was their battery charge for the gray months ahead. Preservation became paramount. Smoking meat and fish over those constant fires wasn't just for flavor. It was a drying process that created calorie-dense, non-perishable stores. They fermented foods, creating sources of nutrition that could last. In a very real sense, they were canning with smoke and salt, building a food bank to weather the literal storm. So you have the physical system and the logistical planning, but we are still missing the core engine that made all of this possible. The technology was vital, but it was useless without the most important, fragile, and powerful resource in a sodden world: social trust. Hypothermia and desperation do not breed patience. They breed irritability, conflict, and a desperate me-first instinct that would shatter any group. And that's where the story takes its deepest turn. Because researchers who study human resilience believe that the endless rain may have done more than force us to build better roofs. It may have directly shaped the evolution of the human mind itself, forging our capacity for patience, for shared suffering, and for a quiet, persistent kindness that literally held the heat in. The very thing that feels so draining to you on a rainy afternoon, that subdued, cabin fever mood, might be the ancient, fossilized echo of your ancestors' greatest survival strategy. To understand how, we have to look past the shelters and the clothing, and into the dark, close quarters of a hut, where the rain has been falling for 40 days and 40 nights, where tempers are as frayed as the worn-out furs, and the future is a gray blank. The miracle isn't that they had fire. It's that they agreed, day after grinding day, on who would tend it. The firekeeper. It sounds like a small, rotational chore, but in that damp, confined world, it was a position of sacred, practical trust. Letting the fire die wasn't an inconvenience. It was a crisis. Rekindling it from nothing in a wet world could take hours of exhausting effort. So the group's survival literally rested on the reliability of the person on watch. This demanded a profound, unspoken pact. You had to trust that the other would stay awake through the deepest, most monotonous part of the night. You had to believe they valued the group's warmth as much as their own sleep. It was a daily exercise in deferred gratification, your comfort now, for everyone's safety later. And around that fire, with nothing but the drumming on the roof and time stretching out, something else happened. You couldn't hunt. You couldn't forage. You could only be. So you talked. You told stories. You repaired tools, not in frantic haste, but with a slow, meticulous care born of having nowhere else to be. You soothed the irritable child. You tended the persistent cough. You shared the last of the dried meat evenly, not because you felt generous in that moment, but because you knew tomorrow it might be you who needed the extra share. This was the breeding ground for a very specific type of social bonding, not the explosive, celebratory kind forged in a successful hunt, but the slow-burning, resilient kind forged in shared endurance. It was the glue of low-grade, persistent stress. Researchers who study human cooperation see this pattern everywhere. Groups that face intermittent, dramatic crises often develop heroes. But groups that face constant, grinding, inescapable stress, they develop protocols. They develop rituals of fairness, of turn-taking, of emotional regulation. Because in a leaky hut for an entire season, you cannot afford explosive tempers. A single violent conflict could tear the group apart. And a lone individual in that environment was a dead individual. So they got better at reading each other's moods. They got better at offering a quiet gesture, a shared task, a passed water skin, to diffuse tension before it boiled over. This wasn't innate goodness. It was evolutionary pressure. The wet, clinging cold selected for the patient, for the empathetic, for those who could maintain social bonds, even when every instinct screamed to hoard the last dry spot by the fire for themselves. And this is where we circle back to you. In your room, with your low hum of restlessness. That feeling isn't a flaw. It's an ancient, internal weather vane. For your ancestors, that subtle agitation was a crucial signal. It said the conditions outside were not conducive to action, to gathering, to expansion. It triggered a shift into a different mode, conservation mode. It dialed down the impulsive, novelty-seeking drives, and dialed up the circuits for introspection, for social maintenance, for careful, detailed work. Your craving for sun isn't just for vitamin D. It's your deep physiology remembering that the gray means hunker down. It means turn inward. It means tend your fire and tend your people. So when you feel that subdued, cabin fever mood descend on a rainy afternoon, you are feeling the ghost of that ancient protocol booting up. Your brain is, on some level, preparing for a long haul. It's dimming the noise of ambition and asking you to check on your tribe, a text to a friend, a quiet evening with family. It's urging you to do the meticulous, unglamorous work you've put off, repairing, organizing, planning. That stuck feeling is your biology's way of redirecting energy from conquest to maintenance. Modern life has stripped the context, but not the signal. We've replaced the thatched roof with drywall, the constant fire with central heating, the tanned hides with waterproof polyester. We've won the war against the physical damp, but we cannot air gap ourselves from the atmospheric pressure, from the lack of light, from the way sound carries differently in thick, wet air. Your nervous system still registers it, and it still tries to activate the old playbook. The problem is, we often fight it. We see the mood as productivity's enemy. We try to blast through it with caffeine and forced hustle, feeling guilty for our lack of vibrant energy. We misunderstand the signal. That low hum isn't telling you to do nothing. It's telling you to do something different. It's your biological wisdom saying, now is not the season for planting. It is the season for mending the fences, for sharpening the tools, for telling the stories that remind us who we are. The quiet gut punch is this: your ability to feel a little drained, to crave connection over achievement, to find a strange comfort in the monotony of rain. That isn't weakness. It's the signature of the survivors. It's the genetic inheritance of those who outlasted the endless gray, not by fighting it head-on, but by learning to bend with it, to let it force a slower, deeper, more connected rhythm of life. Every ancestor who passed their genes to you was a master of that damp, patient art. So next time the rain sets in for days, and that feeling creeps over you, you can reframe it. Don't just wait for the sun. Listen to what the gray is asking you to do. It might be asking you to be the firekeeper for someone else, to send the check-in message, to make the soup, to sit in comfortable silence. It might be asking you to tend your own inner embers, to read, to plan, to repair. You are not battling a primitive mood. You are conversing with a deep, sophisticated part of your humanity that knows how to weather a storm. By turning inward and holding close, you are in a room, and the sound is constant. A low, steady drumming. And for the first time in 200,000 years, you can afford to hear it not as a threat, but as an invitation. An invitation to do the work that only the rain can do, to slow you down, to soften the edges of the world, and to remind you that the most vital thing you can sometimes preserve is not your body from the wet, but your peace within it. The rain never stopped them, it shaped them. And now, it simply reminds you of what they built you to be. But what does that even look like now? What is the modern equivalent of mending the nets by firelight? It's not about nostalgia, it's about function. That ancient protocol needs a channel. It might be the meticulous spreadsheet you've avoided, the equivalent of repairing a tool for the future. It could be the phone call to a relative you keep putting off, tending the social bond before it frays. It's the drawer you finally organize, creating order against the external gloom. It's the simple meal cooked from what's in the pantry, a quiet exercise in resourcefulness. These aren't distractions from the rainy day mood. They are the ritual expressions of it. Your brain is seeking the tangible proof that you are maintaining your world, just as they maintained that crucial air gap under the floor. The real shift happens when you stop seeing the dampened energy as a lack of fuel and start seeing it as a different kind of fuel. The fuel for depth, not distance. For repair, not launch. Your ancestors didn't build the longhouse during the downpour. They built it in anticipation, and then during the rain, they preserved it. They told the stories that stored knowledge. They repaired the seams that kept the weather out. Your restless, rainy day brain is looking for its version of that, the seams in your own life that need attention. So you feel the chill through the glass. You hear the endless drumming, and you let that signal complete its circuit. Don't fight the urge to turn inward. Lean into it. The world outside is soft and blurred. Let your focus become soft and blurred too. Not on the distant horizon of achievement, but on the close, tangible details of care. Be the firekeeper. Tend your hearth, literal or metaphorical. Share its warmth. The quiet gut punch is this. In a world obsessed with endless, sunny optimization, your capacity for rainy day stillness isn't a bug in your system. It's the most sophisticated feature. It's the legacy of those who understood that survival isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes, it's about the profound, patient art of holding the line. The rain never asked them to be heroes. It asked them to be persistent, and it's asking you for the same thing now, not to conquer the gray, but to find the profound, sustaining warmth that exists only within it. You are in a room, and the sound is constant. And now you know it's the sound of your own history, still falling, still asking you to do the most human thing of all, to wait, to tend, and to trust that after the long soak, the ground will be perfect for planting.